In the golden light of sunset, the city of Jericho stands as a monument to human arrogance, its double walls shielding a civilization of pride and power. Jericho was not merely a fortress made of stone, it was a symbol of self-sufficiency, deemed impenetrable by every king and conqueror of the ancient world. From their heights, the defenders looked down with disdain, laughing at the wandering tribes of Israel who dared to approach their magnificent and unbreakable mountain of rock. This video is more than a tale of ancient war. It is a warning about the comfort without conscience that plagues our modern hearts and souls today. Time was running out for the city of pride. The echoes of the past whispered a truth they ignored. No wall is high enough to hide from God. The stage was set for a confrontation that would defy all human logic, proving that the strongest fortresses are often the most vulnerable to the divine will. In the quiet of the night, Joshua stood before the impossible. Logic dictated a bloody siege, but the commander of Israel was waiting for a higher word. Suddenly, a figure of blinding light appeared, not as an ally to be recruited, but as the captain of the Lord's host, demanding total and absolute surrender. Faith begins exactly where human logic ends. Joshua bowed, realizing that this battle would not be won by the strength of arms, but by the Spirit's power. The command was strange. No ladders, no rams, and no arrows. Instead, a simple walk around the city, a strategy that seemed foolish to the world. Beyond the gray stone lay a land flowing with milk and honey. To reach the promise, they had to trust the process, no matter how illogical it seemed. The weapon of choice was the Ark of the Covenant, the very presence of God, carried at the heart of the march as their ultimate spiritual shield. 7 priests would carry trumpets of ram's horns, leading the way not with a cry of war, but with the sound of a sacred and holy call. The instructions were clear: silence for 6 days. Every man was to hold his breath and his tongue, letting their footsteps speak their absolute trust in God. The march began in eerie silence. Thousands of boots hit the sand in perfect rhythm, a heartbeat of faith echoing against the silent, watching walls of stone. Dust rose like incense as the column moved. There was no shouting, no clashing of swords, only the terrifying sound of a people who knew how to wait. Joshua led the way with unwavering resolve. He knew that obedience is not about understanding the plan, but about knowing the one who drew the map. For 6 days, the test was endurance. Sometimes God makes us wait, not because He is slow, but to refine our trust into something pure and unbreakable. High above, the guards of Jericho mocked them. They mistook silence for weakness and patience for fear, unaware that the atmosphere was charging with divine power. The contrast was sharp, the noise of the world above against the silence of faith below. True power does not always need to shout to be felt. Day after day, the sun rose on the same routine. To the eyes of man, nothing was changing, but in the realm of the Spirit, everything was shifting. As the 6th day ended, the tension reached its peak. The silence had become a heavy weight, a spiritual pressure cooker ready to burst at the divine signal. The priests prepared their shofars. These were not musical instruments for entertainment, but heralds of a coming judgment that would shake the very foundations of the earth. The world held its breath. One more day, one more test. The pride of man was about to meet the overwhelming and unstoppable glory of the living God. Dawn broke on the 7th day, carrying a different energy. This was the day of completion, the moment when the invisible work would finally become visible. 7 times they would circle the city. With each lap, the spiritual vibrations grew stronger, a hidden resonance tearing at the spiritual heart of the fortress. 1, 2, 3. The pace quickened. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as the final lap drew to a close and the command of silence was lifted. Joshua reached the peak of his faith. He raised his hand, a signal that had been centuries in the making since the promise was given to Abraham. Then came the sound. The long, piercing blast of the shofars tore through the air, a divine frequency that shattered the arrogance of the city's defenders. It wasn't just noise, it was the sound of heaven's decree. The vibrations of the shofars carried the weight of God's word against the walls of man. The people let out a shout that shook the mountains. It was a roar of triumph before the walls had even moved, the ultimate expression of absolute faith. In that instant, the impossible happened. The earth beneath the walls groaned. Cracks deep as canyons split the stone that had stood for centuries of human history. The pride of Jericho collapsed in a heap. The walls didn't fall inward, they fell flat, creating a ramp for the faithful to walk right into victory. Human engineering failed, military strategy failed, everything the world trusted in was reduced to dust in the face of a people who simply dared to obey. They rushed in not as conquerors of their own strength, but as inheritors of a promise. The barrier was gone, the way to the future was open. When the dust settled, only ruins remained. Jericho's fall serves as a permanent reminder that no human structure can stand against the ultimate truth of God. But amidst the destruction, there was mercy. One house stood, one family was spared, because they chose to align their hearts with the coming kingdom. Rahab, the woman who risked everything for the truth, found safety in the rubble. Her faith was the thread that pulled her out of the coming judgment. The scarlet cord was her signal, a symbol of the blood that protects and the faith that saves, even in the most desperate and dark of times. Joshua did not celebrate his own genius. He knelt among the ruins, acknowledging that the victory belonged to the one who commanded the stars and the stones. The first lesson is clear: do not let your prosperity blind your conscience. Wealth built on pride is a house built on sand, destined to fall. The second lesson is radical obedience. When we follow God's instructions, even the ones that seem foolish, we unlock the miraculous power of the heavens. What walls are standing in your way today? Is it fear, debt, or a broken heart? The same power that leveled Jericho is available to you. Pick up your trumpet of faith. Walk your laps with patience. Trust that the silence of today is preparing the ground for the shout of tomorrow. Join our community of faith. Subscribe now to explore more journeys of the soul and leave a comment below about the walls you are facing today.